I've spent my career taking on some of the cultural baddies, some of the most prominent intellectuals in the world, some of them in public debate, some of them behind the scenes. And I've come to realize that ideas define everything that we do. With an academic degree, you're trained to be a researcher and writer to the point that it's annoying. But I'm grateful for it. I'm not talking about books I've not read. I'm not talking about papers I've not read. Whether I agree with them or not actually isn't the point. There are quite a few books that I would read that I would say are actually evil books. Donald Trump, when he was in a divorce with his first wife, she said he has a copy of Mein Kampf next to his bed. I wish more people did. If the German people had bothered to read that book rather than just have it on their shelf, we might have avoided the Holocaust. If more people read the Quran, they'd be wiser to what Islam actually is, what they actually believe. If people bothered to read, as I have, the writings of Klaus Schwab and the various contributors to the World Economic Forum and the ideas that are driving the globalists, I read them because I want to understand their mentality. I cut out the middleman. I go straight to the ideology. Everything in your life is being defined by either your ideas or the ideas of the people around you. And each episode, we're going to be digging into a different idea that appears in the culture. This is Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton.
Welcome to another episode of Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton. And today we are talking about the Charlie Kirk Memorial Service. Roughly 300,000 Christians gathered in Glendale, Arizona on Sunday afternoon to celebrate the life of Charlie Kirk. These people, what did they do? They immediately went about to loot stores. They burned and destroyed millions of dollars worth of property. They toppled statues. They held drag queen story hours for children. They called for violence against their political opponents, and they murdered Democrats. And of course, they did none of this. They did absolutely none of this. Oops, that's the other side who does these kinds of things. That's the other side who do these kinds of things. What did these people do? Who filled this stadium? There were so many of them that they had to have an overflow gathering spot, a civic center where these people, additional people could gather. And then there were still more surrounding these facilities. What did they do? Well, they prayed. They spoke of their love of country. They declared the gospel more clearly, more boldly than is done in most churches these days, by politicians no less. Incredible. And they forgave their enemies. The speech by Erica Kirk was so powerful. I'm not even sure I'll be able to get through the show today, listening to it yet again. Now, I will bet that there was some looting. There was some looting of the buffet lines in the Glendale area Golden Corrals. Christians are known to do these things. I'm sure that this weekend was a banner weekend for the buffets in Golden Corral. But listen, it used to be Morrison's Cafeterias, but they're almost all gone. Only one's left, and that's in Mobile, Alabama. But that's another subject. These fascists, these Nazis, these people who long for a dictatorial regime, they left Glendale, Arizona better than they found it. That's what they did. We are not the same, ladies and gentlemen. We're not the same. And when you took to social media to watch the commentary from the left of those who even acknowledged what was taking place in Glendale, Arizona, the kind of things you saw were critiques of, sparklers, on stage, or that somehow that it all just was a little unseemly. Please stop. Please stop. You people, you burn cities. You loot stores. You call for violence. You murder your political opponents. Tried to kill the president of the United States. And you want more of this. We know that you do. Sit this one out. Sit it out. There's just nothing you can say that doesn't make you look worse than you already do. Angelina Jolie, speaking in Spain, said, "I don't even recognize my country anymore." Angelina Jolie, we don't recognize you after so much plastic surgery. You are virtually unrecognizable. Please stop. Please stop with your hate. We are not the same. The lines are very clear between left and right. They are very clear between those people on the right who believe in God, who believe in the rule of law, who believe in the goodness of their country, its capacity for good, who believe in borders, who believe in the right to life for children, who do not believe in Joseph Mengele-like experimentation, irreversible sex change operations on children, who do not believe that they have a right to other people's property, people who believe in their history of where they've come from, and who don't see race, they see character. There's a difference between those people who are vying for the future of this country and the opposition, who, by the way, represent power. They represent the establishment. They're people who don't believe in a right to life for anyone, actually, not just unborn children, but they're moving towards infanticide. They also want to bump off the elderly. They want to reduce the global population. We've shown you this on previous episodes of Ideas Have Consequences. They're individuals who feel nothing but contempt for ordinary people, whom they refer to backhandedly as populists. They have contempt for democracy. They have contempt for the rule of law. They have contempt for borders. They have contempt for the Constitution. They have contempt for America. And most of all, they have contempt for God. That is who these people are. That is who they are. The lines are clearly drawn, and nowhere was that contrast more clear than in Sunday's memorial service for Charlie Kirk. And part of the reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, is that during ordinary times, during morally unremarkable, mundane times, evil can hide. Evil can hide. It's quite contented to hide, often in plain sight. But during times of spiritual resurgence, during times where God is moving and there is a sense of unity, of spiritual goodness, that is to say, real, authentic goodness, evil can't hide. It won't hide. And that is because even when it wants to, it's unable to, and it's because it recoils. It recoils in the midst of the good. When the light shines into the darkness does not overcome the light. It recoils from the light. It lashes out. It spews forth hate. Imagine finding anything negative to say about a woman who went on stage and said before the whole world that she forgave a man who just 10 days prior assassinated her husband. Think about that. How powerful. How powerful. It's absolutely incredible. At certain times, wise investors look for stability. Markets are overinflated. Inflation remains a concern, and global tensions continue to rise. That's why many are turning to the safety of physical gold and silver. Alpha Omega Gold is a Christian-owned precious metals company known for honesty, transparency, and biblical stewardship principles. Their team help clients protect their investment with integrity and clear guidance, never pressure. Right now, Alpha Omega Gold is offering a free precious metals navigation guide to explain why owning gold and silver can be a smart, strategic hedge for retirement accounts and long-term security. Don't wait until economic shifts impact your future. So today, go and visit www.ao.gold/IHC or call 855-4AO-GOLD. That's 855-426-4653. Call today to learn how simple it can be to secure what matters most. Charlie Kirk's memorial service was about, I didn't time it, but it was about 5 hours long. And I was on my tractor for the entire day. I saw someone in the comments said that I have a, just one of these negative sorts who came on and said, yeah, another guy with a spray-on tan. Whatever tan I have, it's authentic, it's real. And it's because I spend a lot of time in the sun. And sadly, I really don't tan. I just kind of turn red. My daughter, Sasha, she goes out into the sun, and in 10 minutes, she has this beautiful bronze skin. Me, I just turn red. But I was on the tractor yesterday for about 5 hours, maybe more. And I listened to every word of every speaker, from the build-up to the memorial service all the way through President Trump's address. And I was listening to it on the Patriot, Sirius XM's channel, the Patriot, radio, I think it's called. Meaning I wasn't watching it on television where you weren't getting all the speakers because there were interviews and there was a lot of commentary, except for, some, bigger speakers. I was getting the whole thing, uninterrupted. And it was fabulous. I will say that I had some concerns going in that it might be turned into a kind of RNC rally. And, the Republican National Convention last year was okay. I didn't love every aspect of it. I certainly didn't love Trump platforming an unrepentant pro-abortion a porn star. Didn't care for that. And I had some concerns going into this that Erica Kirk, vulnerable, just on the heels of everything that's going on, that there might be some people who would work their way in and use this platform for their own purposes. Didn't happen. The entire memorial service kept pointing you again and again towards Jesus Christ, not just towards some vague deity, but towards Jesus Christ. Charlie Kirk was a Christian. If you want to criticize that they didn't mention, Allah or whatever, again, sit down. Charlie Kirk was a Christian. He was an evangelical Christian. And it was right, it was appropriate to point towards that God, towards the biblical God. And it's the biblical God, by the way, that our founding fathers looked towards in the founding of this country, the Declaration of Independence. When it speaks of a creator, it's not just speaking of, a vague deity. It's speaking of the biblical God. Because that's the only God that says that we are made with unalienable rights. It's the only God that says that we're created equal. Other gods don't say that. That's the God that Charlie Kirk believed in. And that's the God that politicians, I want to stress that, politicians, some churches do not proclaim the gospel as clearly, as plainly as Marco Rubio did yesterday. Wow, what an address. What an address. It was so powerful. And again, as I'm riding around on my tractor working, I'm just riveted, to the whole thing. It was like I was watching 2 episodes of the Lord of the Rings trilogy back to back, and I was just totally riveted to every word of every speaker. Some were better than others. That's exactly what you would expect to be the case. And I want to draw your attention to a few of them that I thought were outstanding. If you didn't get a chance to see it, if you didn't get a chance to listen to it, I encourage you to do so. Again, it's about, I don't know, 4.5, 5 hours long. It's very long, but you don't have to listen to it in one sitting. You're going to listen to it while you're walking around your, in your working in your kitchen, or you're working in the yard or the fields, as I was. When you're driving, when you're exercising, you can listen to it in bits. You can listen to it in parts, and I encourage you to do so. But if you don't have time for that, I'm going to show you the 3 speakers that I thought were the most powerful, the most meaningful of the speakers that we heard yesterday, and not their whole address, just a few snippets that I want to underscore in their talks. And I would also encourage you to do this with your children, with your grandchildren. If they're old enough to have a conversation with you, they're old enough to understand this. This is an important cultural moment. And I'll add, without any disparagement of Charlie Kirk, this was about much, much more than Charlie Kirk. This was about much, much more than Charlie Kirk, as Charlie would want it to be. This was elevating his life and his work and his legacy. It was elevating that to a much, much higher plane. And that's because that's what a funeral, and this wasn't a funeral, but it was funeral-like in the sense that it was a celebration of his life. I remember years ago a conversation that I had with my pastor. It was just a hypothetical conversation because I knew my parents' attitude about their own bodies and their own deaths. My father wanted to be cremated. He did not want to have a big funeral. He did not want to have much of a funeral at all. And that was mainly a consideration towards my mother. My father was 14 years older than my mother. He anticipated going before her, and he did. And he did not want her. He took care of everything regarding himself in the event of his own death. And that's because he didn't want to be a burden to her, and he did not want her spending precious resources on his burial. So my father arranged to be cremated. He did not want her spending money on a headstone and this sort of thing. We can save the debate over cremation to another time. I personally am not a fan of it. I'm not a believer in it, but I did understand why my father wanted to do that. And I was talking to my pastor about this. And I said, what if I were to say to you, what if I were to die and you were giving my, I was speaking to you, and I told you that I don't want to have a funeral, what would you say? And I loved his response. He said, I would defy you, Larry. I would defy you, because it's not about you. I mean, it is about you in that it's your life we're celebrating, but we're celebrating God's work in your life. For the believer, I would defy you, because we celebrate the life of a believer and God's work in and through him. And this is what was happening with Charlie Kirk, who was elevated to a much higher plane. And I'm so appreciative of the fact that each of these speakers, and I don't recall one who was an exception to this, even Tucker Carlson, who I would not have invited, given where Tucker Carlson is these days. But I thought Tucker Carlson did a good job. I wouldn't say that he was one of the best presenters, but he did a fine job. And I would say all the others, they honored the memory of Charlie Kirk by not using it to promote their own agendas. Frank Turek, good job, Frank. Good job in what you did, in what you said, in pointing people to Jesus Christ. And that was my pastor's point, is that I would defy you, because a funeral for a believer is a celebration of his life, of the fact that he's in heaven now, that he is with God, that he would not want to come back here. And it is an opportunity to point all of those there. One of the few times these days, ladies and gentlemen, when people, death has been so removed from visibility in modern times that people seldom think about their own mortality. And that is exactly how the devil would have it. One of the few times that they do think about their own mortality, is at a funeral, and it's why so few people want to go to them. When I was in the hospital for a very long time, I recall friends who said to me, I'm sorry I didn't come to see you, but I don't like hospitals, to which I could only reply sarcastically, well, gosh, I was loving it. I was so enjoying it. And to them, I'd say the same thing. It's not about you. It was about me. I was crushed. I was in ICU. I could have used a word of encouragement from you, a visit from you. But why do people not want to go to those things? Because they're unpleasant. A hospital is unpleasant. It makes them think of their own mortality. A funeral is unpleasant. It makes them think of their own mortality, and they don't want to go there. They play whack-a-mole with those kinds of thoughts. They want to keep them away, and the devil wants you to keep them away too. So a proper funeral, or in this case, a memorial service, any good pastor or good Christian should see it as an opportunity to point you heavenward, to make you think of your mortality, because the mortality rate of every generation, ladies and gentlemen, is 100%. The mortality rate of every generation is 100%. Charlie was going to die eventually. He just died much younger than he ought to have, and he died in a way that he ought not to have. But you're going to die. Every one of those people in Glendale, Arizona, they're going to die. All the millions of people listening around the world are going to die. But thank God they were listening, because they were pointed to Jesus Christ. All the others who are mocking, I fear for them. I fear for them. And again, it wasn't pastors as a rule who were speaking. It was mostly politicians. Mostly politicians. Frank Turek, who was an apologist, was, and Charlie Kirk's pastor, whose name's gone out of my head, were kind of anomalous among all of the speakers who were there. And not all the speakers were Christians. So, you know, you didn't have Tulsi Gabbard, for instance, who is, what is she? She's Buddhist, Hindu. She wasn't pointing people to Jesus Christ, but at least she respected the occasion and where she was. And she spoke of Charlie Kirk's faith. She spoke of Charlie Kirk's faith. She's Hindu. So I thought it was incredibly powerful. I don't know that we're so used to speaking in hyperbole these days. This is the worst storm ever. He's the greatest athlete ever. I hate it. I hate it. But having said that, I have wondered, has there ever been, because of the power of modern, electronic media, not just television, but things like social media, YouTube, where people were watching, or Sirius satellite radio, where I was listening, or Twitter, where people could watch or listen live, and Facebook, and on and on and on and on it goes. Billions of people will hear this. We're listening, will hear this. Has the gospel ever been proclaimed so clearly to so many in the history of the world? I don't think so. Billy Graham probably reached the largest audiences, but this modern capability didn't exist during the peak years of Graham's ministry, when he was speaking in places like Russia and in the United Kingdom and in Germany and here in the United States and so many other places around the world. Otherwise, he might have. Billy Graham has probably reached more people with the gospel than anybody in human history. I mean, outside of, the apostles and the prophets, in Scripture itself. But in modern times, just in terms of his words, hearing him, that would be Billy Graham. But yesterday, holy smokes, And now it's recorded for all time, and you can go and listen to this. It's so powerful. To me, apart from Erica Kirk's address, going to the memorial service itself, apart from Erica Kirk's address, for me, this moment by Secretary of State Marco Rubio was the most powerful. Let's watch. Let's listen to this.
And let me close with this. How do you remember? This is a memorial service. It's to honor him. How do you best remember it? I'll take the liberty of saying what I think we can best do. Look, I think he had a tremendous impact on young Americans in general. I think he had a very special and direct impact on young men in this country. That's one of the greatest developments I've seen. It's been very positive. I think we remember him for that. I think we remember him for constantly saying, you want to live a productive life, get married, start a family, love your country. These are powerful messages. But I hope many who are watching, I imagine there are people watching here tonight that didn't know much about Charlie Kirk until 11 days ago. Maybe they were disengaged from politics. Maybe they were partially engaged. I hope one of the things they take from this is that the movement Charlie Kirk led and started and gave fuel to was about politics, but not only about politics. It was deeper. It was broader. And I would say that, taking the liberty, but I'm confident he would agree, one of the things he wants us to take away from this, from all of this, is the following. His deep belief that we were all created, every single one of us, before the beginning of time, by the hands of the God of the universe, an all-powerful God, who loved us and created us for the purpose of living with him in eternity. But then sin entered the world and separated us from our Creator. And so God took on the form of a man and came down and lived among us. And he suffered like men. And he died like a man. But on the third day he rose unlike any mortal man. And to prove any doubters wrong, he ate with his disciples so they could see, and they touched his wounds. He didn't rise as a ghost or as a spirit, but as flesh. And then he rose to the heaven, but he promised he would return. And he will. And when he returns, because he took on that death, because he carried that cross, we were freed from the sin that separated us from him. And when he returns, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and we will all be together, and we are going to have a great reunion there again with Charlie and all the people we love. Thank you, and God bless you.
Wow. That was the Secretary of State of the United States. Could have been Charles Spurgeon. How powerful that was. Marco Rubio could have used this massive, not just local or state or national, but international audience to launch a post-Trump campaign for president of the United States. He could have used it to sell a book. He might have used it for some other reason. But what did he do? Marco Rubio stood up and he proclaimed clearly, articulately, and accurately the heart of the gospel message. I am driving around on my tractor and I wanted to get up, stand on my seat and say, "Oh, Captain, my Captain, I will follow you anywhere, sir. If you ask me to attack a tank with a screwdriver, yes, sir." Fantastic. So powerful. But as powerful as that was, I think Marco Rubio would agree with me that it wasn't and shouldn't have been the most powerful moment on Sunday's memorial service. That moment was reserved to Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow. And I am trying to imagine, I was listening to her, I was trying to imagine what strength, what fortitude, what composure must have been required of her to do this before all of these people. How did she pull this off? And my answer is only the strength of God surging through her. And then what she had to say made it very clear that it absolutely was the Holy Spirit working through her. Because you see, it takes divine strength to do what she did. Let's listen to her. This, again, I encourage you to listen to the whole thing. But if you're not able to do that, just listen to this portion of her speech.
Charlie passionately wanted to reach and save the lost boys of the West. The young men who feel like they have no direction, no purpose, no faith, and no reason to live. The men wasting their lives on distractions, and the men consumed with resentment, anger, and hate. Charlie wanted to help them. He wanted them to have a home with Turning Point USA. And when he went onto campus, he was looking to show them a better path and a better life that was right there for the taking. He wanted to show them that. My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men just like the one who took his life. That young man, on the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love. Love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us.
I can't get through just listening to that without feeling great emotion. I cannot even begin to imagine what it was like for her on stage to say it. But it wasn't just what she said, it's what she has decided to do in her heart. She has made a decision, one of the hardest decisions of all, and that's to forgive someone who has murdered in a premeditated, ruthless fashion her husband for doing no wrong. You know, I've often found it's easier for me to forgive things that were done to me, evil that was done to me. And over the course of my life, there has been some evil, considerable evil done to me by other people. I find that it's easier for me to forgive those people than it is for me to forgive those who have done great evil to those whom I love. Have you ever found that to be true? I think Erica Kirk would have found it much easier to forgive this man for committing directly a great evil against her. And obviously, this was an evil against her whole family. But you understand the distinction I'm making. An act of violence against her personally would have, I believe, been easier for her to forgive than this unconscionable act of violence against her husband, resulting in her death, resulting in his death. And yet she has found not the human strength, but the superhuman strength that is imparted by the God she serves, in whom she has put her faith and trust, who says to her, and these are verses that should terrify any of you who are bitter of heart, who are possessed of an unforgiving spirit. Jesus saying, if you do not forgive, then I won't forgive you. If you will not forgive others for the wrongs they've committed against you, then I will not forgive you before my Father in heaven. Those are frightening verses. We tend to think that the wrong done to us, that there maybe should be a little asterisk by it that says, well, this is an exception. When God said things like that we should forgive other people, he didn't anticipate a situation like mine. And he would give me a mulligan on this. Nope. No, he doesn't do that. And Erica Kirk modeled before the entire world not just feminine strength, which she did as she went on to talk about her marriage with her husband and how they didn't compete with each other and the kind of home she sought to create for her husband and for her children. But she modeled great Christian virtue in this moment. It is modeled before the entire world, a world that is full of hate. And in a country where youth have been radicalized, have been pumped full of hate until one of them did this to her own husband. And yet this was her reaction to this. This was an incredibly powerful moment that will, reverberate through eternity. Truly, this woman is storing up treasures in heaven where her husband awaits her. But I would encourage you to listen to the entire talk. And then the person closing it was, of course, President Trump. J.D. Vance, by the way, also gave the Vice President of the United States, also gave a fabulous talk. I would encourage you to listen to that. Stephen Miller did the same. Worth listening to him. But President Trump's talk was so him in every way. It reminded me a bit of his talk at the RNC after, it was the first time he had spoken after the assassination attempt on him. And so he came, he was a little, emotional from that moment. He was reflecting on eternity clearly. And the speech was criticized because he sort of ambled along and clearly went off his notes, off script, to talk about a variety of things. Didn't bother me at all. It was very much like Donald Trump. And this talk was like that too. He threw in a few other things that maybe could have been left out, like the press conference that he held yesterday about the Food and Drug Administration, about autism. He threw in a couple of things regarding that and cities that they're going to clean up, and he made mention of tariffs and these kinds of things. But Trump didn't miss doing the thing he was supposed to do. He had one job and he did it. And the job was to honor Charlie Kirk. And I thought that the moment where he honored Charlie Kirk most is where the left criticized him most, and some on the right criticized him most. And it's in this moment right here.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent. And I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent. Charlie's angry. Looking down, he's angry at me now. He wasn't interested in demonizing anyone. He was interested in persuading everyone to the ideas and principles he believed were good, right, and true. Before each appearance, he prayed these words: God, use me for your will. Always said the same thing. Use me for your will.
People who criticized him, what did they do? They said, oh, see there, he's full of hate. He's full of hate. He just admitted it. The man is full of hate. I had friends who lean left who said this very thing regarding Donald Trump. I saw that in a completely different light. And the way I saw it was that Trump was honoring Charlie Kirk the most honest way he knew how. And that's because he was saying Charlie Kirk is a better person than I am. That's what Donald Trump was saying. And for a man with Trump's ego, with his hubris, that's no small thing. That was really quite an honor, a compliment that he was paying Charlie Kirk. And he was being transparent. That's the thing that people love about Donald Trump, is that Donald Trump isn't pretentious. He says what he's thinking. There's nothing fraudulent with this man. And he was being very, very honest. Charlie Kirk would not approve of what I'm saying here. And he was also expressing, I believe, something aspirational, which is what I liked also. He was saying, he was admitting before the entire world, this is a character flaw. And thanks to Charlie, who is watching me now and not approving of what I've just said, I am aspiring to be something better. And I'm open to hearing what Erica and the other people of the team have to say to me about how I'm wrong about this. I loved it. I loved it. Not because Trump was encouraging people to hate their enemies, but because he was honoring Charlie as a better person than he is. How wonderful is that? How transparent is that? And for those of you, again, on the left, you have no moral authority. I saw Don Lemon talking about the entire occasion and took this very pompous, self-righteous, high horse position as though he held the moral high ground. Do not let anyone who thinks that the proper place to garage, shall we say, a sausage, shall we say, is in another man's anus, claim the moral high ground. Don't let anyone who thinks the annihilation of the unborn, or who thinks that the mutilation of children, don't let those kinds of people claim the moral high ground. They have none. Don't let people who disregard our Constitution and the rule of law and who are haters of God, Romans chapter 1, do not let such people claim the moral high ground. And I want to be clear on this point. If you remember nothing else of what I'm talking about today, the reason the left hated what happened in Arizona yesterday, it wasn't chiefly because Donald Trump spoke, or because Marco Rubio spoke, or J.D. Vance, or because all these conservatives, gathered in this place. They hate it ultimately because they're haters of God. You see, the gospel There's a reason why tyrants or would-be tyrants attack God's people. Ahab and Jezebel, Herod, Pontius Pilate. There's a reason why haters of God attack God's people. And that is because the gospel is an ever-present threat to power and to those who would wield it wickedly. It serves as a constant condemnation and reminder to us of our wickedness. It shines light into the darkness. And you see, sin loves darkness. People who want to do the kinds of things that I've just given you an inventory of, they're lovers of darkness. And for that reason, they are by necessity haters of God because he is light. Someone I recall saying to me, well, Satan, we're told, is an angel of... No. We're not told he's an angel of light. We are told that he disguises himself as an angel of light. He disguises himself as that. He's not the authentic light. The authentic light, as Marco Rubio so articulately put it, came into the world. It became flesh. He became one of us, and he dwelt among us. And he died for our sins, that others who believed in him might have eternal life. Do not let evil people claim the moral high ground, and don't pretend to hold it because of your own goodness. I don't on this show, ladies and gentlemen. I am a sinful human being. I am saved by God's grace alone. Do not put your hope in me. I will fail you. I point you to Jesus Christ. No human being can bear the weight of your hope. I cannot be the repository of your hope. Donald Trump can't be that. No one can, except for Jesus Christ. That's the only one. And I personally loved what Donald Trump had to say here, because he was honoring Charlie by acknowledging that Charlie was a better person than he is, and that he hoped himself to be that better person. Of course, not everyone was celebrating Charlie's life yesterday, as I pointed out. VeggieTales creator, VeggieTales. My children grew up watching VeggieTales. We liked them. But VeggieTales creator Phil Vischer has sadly become a tool of the left. Probably paid to do it. But he has become a tool of the left, just like David French, just like Russell Moore. And I just offered myself to NBC. They asked me if I'd debate Russell Moore. Yes, I will be happy to debate Russell Moore. I would relish the opportunity to debate Russell Moore in a fair format on a topic that I feel like I know something about. And not, again, because I pretend that I have all the answers to everything. I certainly do not. But I do claim this. I do claim to come from a biblical perspective. And I do claim that he does not. And neither does Phil Vischer. Individuals like this, as you will see, if you're not familiar with what Phil Vischer and his ilk are doing, they're individuals who they posture as Christians, very self-righteous, pompous Christians, who take it upon themselves to always lecture Christians on all the terrible things they're doing. Conservatives, they're the ones who say you shouldn't be political, and they're the most political of all. They are the most political of all. And right after Charlie Kirk's assassination, Phil took to Twitter to lecture Christians about their tone. Now, bear in mind, it wasn't Christians who were murdering people, who were calling for violence, who were burning things, who were looting. It wasn't Christians doing any of those things. It was the left. But Phil thought this was the appropriate moment to lecture Christians on their tone. And it seems that Phil is determined to earn my approval. You will not get it until you repent, Phil. And so he DMs me frequently, comes into my, my Twitter threads, and responds to me, and likes to lecture me, about my tone, and DM me from time to time. And this is just what you go on and see the entire, exchange with Phil. I just keep saying to Phil, if you want to take me on in public debate, I'm happy to debate you. I am happy to debate you, but I'm not doing this. I'm not wasting my time with you. But if you'd like to have an actual debate with me, I'll do it. You can come on this show. We won't edit it. We won't edit it in such a way as to make you look bad and make me look good. We can even do it in a YouTube Live if you like. And again, since the last major debate that I did, I've bounced off of a windshield, suffered a traumatic brain injury. Undoubtedly, I've lost a few IQ points, so the advantage is to you. I probably won't be as quick on my feet, as I once was. But Phil tweets this, and this is the tweet that I finally decided I'm responding to. He said, your public persona is built on disparagement and spite for others, Larry. That makes it impossible to engage as followers of Christ. So I wrote an open letter to Phil Vischer. Now, if you listen to WTF, the show that I do with Lawrence Fox this week, you will have already heard this. But I want the audience of Ideas Have Consequences, I want the posse to hear my response, because I want it to stimulate your faith thinking about individuals like this. Like Phil Vischer, these individuals who are inside the church, and they are there to mislead the church. So my open letter to Phil Vischer, which has, I think, about 350,000 views online. Phil, you're like every wolf in sheep's clothing that I've ever encountered in the church. You're all about tone, not truth. Jesus, let's not turn over any tables. It's offensive to the moneylenders. What you call disparagement is righteous anger. I am outraged by the annihilation of the unborn, the mutilation of children, and the murder of innocents. But for you, it's about tone. I don't treat evil opinions with respect. I call them out, debate them, mock them, and endeavor to demolish the arguments, as we are called to do in 2 Corinthians 10:5, because those promoting them feast on the blood of innocents. But you be you, Phil. I'm fascinated by the fact that you immediately brought race into our discussion in a prior tweet, a topic I had neither mentioned nor inferred. And you did it in the typical condescending manner of the leftist who thinks non-whites need your help. And that's because at bottom, you are a racist. Where you see skin color, I am incidentally severely colorblind. I see those who know Christ and those who do not, the least of these and those who oppress them, and those who obey the law and those who break it. The left has encouraged violence of every sort, and unsurprisingly, yet another innocent was murdered in cold blood. The murderer was, it seems, a typical American kid from a typical American home who was radicalized, weaponized, and sent out as an assassin to do exactly what Democrats wanted him to do. Do not be deceived. They want more of the same. A wife has been widowed, her children made fatherless, and those parts of the world where conscience has not yet been killed mourn and are justly angry. Angry, Phil, a proper sentiment in these times, Ephesians 4:26. But what do? You take to Twitter to lecture Christians on their tone, and like the serpent in the garden, to ask leading questions with evil as their end. Did God actually say? You can engage me, Phil, in open debate, but you cannot engage me as a follower of Christ, because you're not a follower of Christ, whatever your former commitments might have been. You and your cohort of Russell Moore and David French are evil men. Indeed, you all remind me of a quotation from C.S. Lewis's The Screwtape Letters. Quote, "The greatest evil is not now done in those sordid dens of crime that Dickens loved to paint. It is not done even in concentration camps and labor camps. In those, we see its final result. But it is conceived and ordered, moved, seconded, carried, and minuted in clean, carpeted, warmed, and well-lit offices by quiet men with white collars and cut fingernails and smooth-shaven cheeks who do not need to raise their voices. End quote. That describes the lot of you perfectly, possessed of your own self-righteousness, emanating arrogance, but on theological deception, and supported by those who use you to demoralize God's people. You are an apostate at best. That is, if you ever believe the gospel at all. You are all the church's equivalent of Tokyo Rose. You say that you liked my book, The Faith of Christopher Hitchens. Thank you. But that you cannot reconcile the author of that book with my, quote, Twitter persona. Your failure to do so, Phil, is because you didn't understand that book. My relationship with Christopher was made possible because of mutual respect built on authenticity. I didn't pretend to be something other than a Christian, and he didn't pretend to be something other than an atheist. There's honesty in that. He knew and appreciated that my concern for his soul was real, and that I engaged him to that end. Christopher liked that. He would have rightly thought me a fraud had I done otherwise. That's why I know that he would have liked Charlie Kirk very much. But he reviled people like you because you are snakes. Worse, you are smug snakes. As an aside, I once shared a stage with Russell Moore at an apologetics conference in, I think, 2007. Guess what the focus of his talk was that night? The evils of VeggieTales. I recall this line from his presentation. I would rather people watch Desperate Housewives than VeggieTales. Check the tape. I was your defender that night. Moore has come a long way since then, justifying, like you, every evil Democrat agenda. But we shouldn't be surprised. We now know that he was a paid Democrat operative. His organization was receiving more than $1 million a year from USAID. So he's a paid operative. Moore's a charlatan. So if you find my words not to your liking, it isn't because I'm out for clicks, as you suggest, or motivated by some other nefarious reason. It is because I believe the gospel to the marrow of my bones, and I'm outraged by those who prey on the vulnerable. That's you and your ilk, in spite of your many claims of concern for them. I watched you in a podcast talking about open borders and illegals in this country with the confidence of a man who knew his subject intimately. But it's easy, isn't it, within the safe confines of your leftist virtue signaling echo chamber? I was in the jungles of South and Central America and in the cartel towns engaging these illegals and those who traffic in them. I don't recall seeing you there. And yes, I meant every word that I wrote. To reiterate, if you're a Democrat today, you're evil, stupid, or both. The Democrat Party has always been the party of slavery. History has established that fact. But now they're the party of murder. They encourage murder, fund murder, revel in murder. Do all of its 60 million, according to you, members do that? No. But they're enablers of it. They turn a blind eye to it, just as millions turned a blind eye to their Jewish neighbors as they were dragged out into the streets and sent to death camps. You're one of them, Phil. You have chosen to align yourself with reprobates who have denied God in every conceivable way. In closing, I want to be clear that I make no claims of moral superiority to you or anyone else. I am saved by the blood of Jesus Christ alone, but I know very well his call upon my life, and it is, in part, to demolish the insidious arguments of people like you and to give voice to the voiceless. And no matter your pretensions to the contrary, you speak on behalf of power, on behalf of the establishment. I suspect you're paid to do it, but all the threads of USAID and Soros monies haven't yet been traced. Final question. How many people have tried to kill you for your opinions? I've had more than a few, twice this year alone. So too, a number of my colleagues. Charlie, sadly, was just the latest in a long line of murder attempts, and to our great grief, his outcome was different than our own. You're an enemy of God, Phil, and therefore an enemy of his people. I hope you will repent. If you want to debate me publicly, I will arrange it. But I should be honest with you. I don't respect your opinions, and I revile what you represent. I can have and have had genuine respect for a declared enemy, but I have none for those who pretend to be of us when they are manifestly nothing of the sort. Signed, Larry Alex Taunton. That is my open letter to Phil Vischer, VeggieTales creator. And it could just as easily be my open letter to other people like him. As I say, David French and Russell Moore and the innumerable number of pastors in this country who are preaching a so-called third way or milquetoast, toothless gospel, which is no gospel at all. The gospel, ladies and gentlemen, the biblical gospel is a lion. It's bold, it's confrontational, it's uncompromising. That's what it is. And sooner or later, everyone will have to reconcile themselves to this fact. It's not often that I want to read to you on ideas have consequences, but there's another quotation I would like to read to you. It's from C.S. Lewis's, as we close the program today, C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. And in this portion of the book, he's talking about Christ's return. Christ's return. I want you to listen to this and be encouraged by this. It's quite powerful. God will invade, but I wonder whether people who ask God to interfere openly and directly in our world quite realize what it will be like when he does. When that happens, it is the end of the world. When the author walks onto the stage, the play is over. God is going to invade, all right. But what is the good of saying you're on his side then, when you see the whole natural universe melting away like a dream and something else, something it never entered your head to conceive, comes crashing in? Something so beautiful to some of us and so terrible to others that none of us will have any choice left. For this time, it will be God without disguise, something so overwhelming that it will strike either irresistible love or irresistible horror into every creature. It will be too late then to choose your side. There will be no use saying you choose to lie down when it has become impossible to stand up. That will not be the time for your choosing. It will be the time when we discover which side we have really chosen, whether we realized it before or not. Now, today, this moment is our chance to choose the right side. It's your moment, ladies and gentlemen. God is holding back to give us this chance. It will not last forever. We must take it or leave it. If I had a little altar here, I would invite you to come forward and give your life to Jesus Christ if you're listening to us today. Not because Christians pretend to be better. We're not better. We are privy to information that you have not fully processed, and it's this: that there is an ultimate reality. There is a life after this one. There is a God to judge in the next life our actions in this one. Charlie Kirk is in heaven now, as was pointed out in the memorial service, not because Charlie Kirk was a good man, not because he was likable, not because Charlie Kirk went around the country helping young people. Charlie Kirk is in heaven because Charlie Kirk bent the knee. He yielded before the cross of Jesus Christ and said, "Please forgive me for my sins. Please be my Lord and Savior." That's what Charlie Kirk did. And because he did that, he was animated with a mission to change lives. There's something powerful that happens when you experience grace from within. You express it outwardly. You demonstrate it in the lives of other people, and it's demonstrated the world over. I invite you to give your life right now, in this moment, to Jesus Christ. You don't know how to pray? He hears. He will hear you. Just speak to him. Find a quiet space and just speak to him. And please say, "Come into my life. Please forgive me. Please help me. Please give me understanding and direction." And I promise you, he will. Ladies and gentlemen, the whole history of nations, of empires, and of humanity itself has already been written. The outcome is certain. The outcome is irresistible. And if you know Jesus Christ, you are on the winning side. But if you are not, as C.S. Lewis says right here, when he returns, it will be a moment of indescribable joy for you, or it will be a moment of unspeakable terror. This has been Ideas Have Consequences with me, Larry Alex Taunton.